of safety when you came here, right? And it brought you back. What do you think is stopping, or what do you think is preventing those of us who see what's happening in the world from making a move to at least visit the African continent? Now I know that I'm dropping it.
No, it's a relevant question. We don't control the media, we control our attitude. Our attitude is our disposition towards things. Before you meet somebody, somebody can say something about you, right? They say something about you, and now you don't like it, but you never met them, you never had an experience. But they're controlling your attitude, right? Because we don't own the media, and we have control of the media, they're controlling our perception of each other. They're controlling the attitude that we have about Africa. Even though people who've never experienced it before, sometimes they can take on someone who gives it a negative meaning, right? Then you can be influenced by somebody like yourself who gives it a positive spin. There's a narrative warfare, right? Controlling the perception, the belief, the stories, and storytelling. And so, I don't believe, number one, there's been enough investment from the continent itself, right, in the narrative campaign of Africa.
Hold on. All right. Hold on. So we just went a layer. If you're not familiar, you went a layer. I want you to say it one more time.
Yeah.
We went a layer. Say it one more time.
So we talked about narrative warfare. There are those who exist on the continent who have a lot of wealth. And sometimes they're so comfortable in their wealth that they don't want things to change too much. So therefore, they won't use their wealth to create change that will make them uncomfortable. So even though they can utilize the resources that they have to empower those to create the content that raises and expands the idea of what Africa is, to combat the narrative that we receive across the planet about the continent, they're not spending and putting capital, right, budget, infrastructure into that. So therefore, there's not enough investment from the continent itself to change the narrative about Africa.
So that's what we call a two-way street. That's what we call a two-way street because oftentimes the conversation about the diaspora is really about what the diaspora, those of us of African descent around the world, can do for the continent. But we rarely hear a conversation about what. And I know my sister is very goes in town right now. We never really hear a conversation about what the continent's responsibility is to us in the diaspora. And that's a very powerful. So we just went down the lane. So with that, not only is it around investment, I want to ask you a question about reparations. So I had mixed emotions the first time I saw continental African presidents asking for reparations. I'm just being honest. I haven't landed on how I feel yet. My emotions are still with, but I have mixed emotions, right? But I understand that there are two sides to the colonization course. We will never know what it feels like to be colonized on your own land, and you're walking on the same land that your great grandfather walked on, but you speaking another man's tongue. You're looking at the church that was built over your traditional tribe. We will never know what that feels like, those of us in the U.S. And in the U.S., the continent of Africa will never know what it feels like to be shackled, to be chattel slavery. But what I would like for you to talk about, and what I would like for you to expound upon with regards to reparations, is how do you feel, number one, about reparations in general, and number two, about African countries demanding and beginning to ask for reparations for what happened to the continent.
Well, when something is broken, it needs to be repaired. And that's what reparations is, right? It's to actually repair something. I think that the mental part of that of us realizing that regardless of whether you get reparations or not, it is your job to repair yourself. And consciousness, right, is the process of repairing, giving one their identity, their full sense of self back. Sometimes we come to the continent like lost cousins, looking for ourselves. Therefore, allowing somebody to guide you or misguide you in a right or wrong direction, and so many of us get taken advantage of. Right? Because you romanticize the idea of the return, but you have not returned to yourself first. Right? And so if you go somewhere not knowing yourself, then anybody can sell you an identity, connected to a scam, connected to a scheme, and now you're disappointed because you had all these expectations. And so when anywhere I leave across the planet Earth, I'm bringing my full self when I go somewhere. I'm not looking for myself. I'm not going somewhere lost, right? Because that happens even at home. You have people talking about, I'm going to go find my person. Your purpose lies within your identity, right? It lies in your gifts that you bring out, that you inherit, your skills, your talent. It lies in your bloodline. It lies in the mission that's required in the time in which you are living and what you can contribute. And so, as we talk about reparations from a global standpoint, we know that there's a two-way street. There is the selling of the Africans, right, to the colonizers, to the devil, right, all across the planet Earth. Then there is the money that is owed not just by those who sold it, by the Dutch trading system, right, by the Jewish owners of the ship, by the American slave owners, by the institutions that profited all those years that built their empire. There's a lot of people that owe you when you go around collecting for your building. Right? And so black people all across the planet Earth feel like we owe them because everybody is benefited from what was stolen from them. But there's also the standpoint, because I can't really speak from the perspective on this side. I can only really truly speak from the perspective from our side, from North America. Our people will always be owed justice. And we will never give up what's owed to us, no matter what we get on our own. Because what you owe us is the repairment that you're doing to your own humanity. Right? That your story can never be changed, and we can never do business and operate with you. That's like if your family stole everything from my family. But me and you personally don't have a problem. We doing business, but there will always be this ending point. Right? And so if you ever become a person that wants to do the righteous thing, then you will make repairment so we can start over and we can build. And so until the colonizers, until the devil, until the slave traders make that road right, we will always have a problem. Right? And so we didn't get out of slavery because they grew a consciousness. We got out of slavery because we fought. You understand me? And we went to war. And they had to join on to a war that was already occurring. Right? Nobody ever gave us anything. We always fought for everything. So when they try to then take credit for our progress as if they don't owe us, we get that despite what you did to us. So anybody that feels guilty for the participation of the trading of slaves, and not only the trading of slaves, what happened after slavery? Right? We want all hours for everything because you have yours in a time where it's the hardest to get an asset. In a time when quality of living is eroding, and now they want to replace the human labor force with artificial intelligence and robots, and now you get to start 1,000,000 miles ahead and telling us to catch up. No, we should be dissatisfied, and you see the people all across the planet Earth, in Nepal, in Madagascar, in Mexico, the young people are rising up because there's no jobs, there's no opportunity. So the violence is skyrocketing because they're doing the one thing that any people should do when they don't have opportunity. You have to take it. You have to make it. Those who benefit from you being in your position will never benefit from you being out of that position. So there will be no retribution that is given to them unless you force it. So when we talk about the conversation of reparation, it is a conversation that we either want to forcefully make happen, but if we are relying on the moral conscience, right, of those who did the damage in the first place, we're going to be waiting for them.
Please tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Alrighty, so we're here. Give us more time.
When we start telling lies, get up and walk out.